Mind Blender.
Last time we were talking about like directors that remade their own stuff, and like there was one that was killing me. It was Michael Mann.
Okay.
And he remade Heat.
Oh.
Yeah,
he remade Heat?
Heat is a remake.
What was the original?
The original was called L.A. Breakdown. Or Crackdown? L.A. Breakdown or something like that. And it was made for TV. It was supposed to be a pilot, and it turned into a made-for-TV movie. And like you could almost compare it side by side, but like Heat's a little more, it's fucking iconically Michael Mann. So yeah, so it was killing me because like I don't know. Over the years, as you grow up, like you have certain movies that just become like your favorite thing, because you just age into it. So like Heat, I remember it was always in the background in my life since I was a teenager, and I've like saw it and I'm like, oh, I like it, fucking Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, everybody else in it too, and then you watch it and it just gets better. And I remember watching it with Dana just recently, just showing it, just put it on passively. Sometimes you just want to fall asleep and you put something on and shit, and like 3 hours later it's fucking 2 a.m. in the morning, or still like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro drinking coffee together and shit, like shooting the shit. And that's one of the most exciting scenes of all time in all cinema.
I've heard that. I've heard that scene is just crazy. So I want to see a comparison to the TV version of it, which is obviously not as iconic because you don't have the talent.
You could find it, and I don't know if maybe I'll watch Hollywood Breakdown just out of curiosity, or L.A. Breakdown, or Crackdown.
Yeah, I'm still blown away that Scarface is a remake. Like, wow.
Well, Scarface,
and they attempted to remake it like again, but they never did. And there's a lot of remakes out there. The topic of today, you were texting me, is saying like movies that should have been remade and movies that really shouldn't have. Yeah. And I'm thinking
movies that shouldn't be remade, that should never be remade. There's like three of them. Shouldn't, should never be remade.
Yeah.
All right. I'm trying to differentiate what I'm saying because it just sounds like I'm repeating myself. And I do that a lot. And movies, what kind of movie would you want to see remade?
Okay, got it. Oh, so today's not a shit session where we're just like shitting on things that have already been remade. Like, why did you do that? Like,
yeah, I don't really want to like fucking do that. Like because sometimes like they end up being a happy surprise. Yeah. Like I think we mentioned it already. Like I was like saying like. I remember 20 years ago, the first Texas Chainsaw remake came out, and I was like, fuck, they should never touch that. This is a classic. This is after the Psycho remake, and I was just like figuring like, that's
shot
horrible.
For shot.
Yeah. I remember liking the Psycho remake.
I like the Texas Chainsaw remake, but it's like the original was very artsy in a sense of show, like tell, don't show. And then in this one, you visually see the hanging scene, the famous hanging scene.
Yeah.
You see the hooks going through her, while in the other one it was more implied, which is scarier in a way.
I think actually the original is more down and dirty feeling. Like what makes it great, like all the best fucking horror movies or scenes of violence is like the implied violence. Like it's so visceral that you thought like everybody when the movie came out, like when they first saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they thought it was like the goriest movie of all time, and like it's very, very little blood. Same thing with Scarface, like if we're talking about like that shower scene where the guy gets cut up with a chainsaw.
I think it's the idea that he's getting cut up with a chainsaw.
But it's like scarier. So like if the filmmaking is that good, like even Tarantino did it in Pulp Fiction with the samurai scene with Bruce Willis, where all he's doing is just like cutting the guy up, but off screen and shit, and you're just implying the violence, and people think that they're seeing more than they are. So or even like the syringe scene, which like infamously at Cannes like had somebody knocked fuck out like because it was so intense, and Tarantino was like, my movie works that much. People have heart attacks in the fucking screen. So if you could like make your filmmaking that good without having to imply to gore, more power to you.
What inspired this idea? Like, what was a movie you thought at first, and you're like, oh, this would be a great idea for an episode? Because I'm really curious.
I was actually just because I couldn't fall asleep the other night, and I'm just going through Tubi, and then like we were talking about remakes and all that shit, and you were talking about the Invaders from Mars, and I'm like, I haven't seen that like for years and shit, or a couple years, and I just wanted to have another look at it. So I'm talking about the Tobe Hooper remake. Since
of course.
We're talking about Texas Chainsaw and all that stuff. So he's not even done remakes. two to be in fact. So watching that one, I'm like, God, this was, it's a nice, fun little remake. I almost say it's like just on par with The Blob.
Yeah.
And then I watched the original, and I'm like, yeah, this movie did need to be remade.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because all the people in it. Yeah. It's like it's a little too
talky.
A little too talky.
Explanation.
But Toby, man, oh my God, once you get in the ship, that is alien shit that I have never fucking seen. Because I like Fire in the Sky a lot, and that was like implied stuff where it's really quick, really like whatever. But in Invaders from Mars, the gigantor bugs and all that shit, like things get real. I thought it was going to be like Mars attacks or something.
Yeah, he wanted to, like, I was like just like not reading up, just listening in a few making ofs and all that stuff. Like he wanted to go all out to retell that story, but for once do like a horror movie, but for kids type of thing, like a PG type of horror movie, which actually he tried doing for Texas Chainsaw. I don't know how he thought he was going to get away with a lot of that. I think that's why there's not as much blood.
Okay,
so we're going to try to make this a PG. It's like, no,
so it was a necessary remake.
It's fun, and like he wanted to work with a big budget and stuff, and like that was part of his Canon 3-movie deal type of thing. Like he did first was the movie we all
Life Force.
I'll never remember the name for that movie
because it's not a good name. Like, Space Vampires implies how campy it could have been, but it's a better name.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't consider it a remake, but it definitely was a reboot that was necessary. I think Dread, comparatively to the Sylvester Stallone one, I will take the Carl Urban one any day.
That's a good point.
I don't think it's a remake though. But,
no, it's just let's just try to approach this material again. Not have any like big ego actors, in there, or any studio meddling and all that stuff. Like, we'll just have people that really want to make the movie. Now the tech is like available. Like back when the Sylvester Stallone movie came out, it was like all to get a movie that big with like that sort of like amount of special effects. It had to have been like a huge studio like release and all that shit. So you had more people like with their fingers in the pot. And when Dread was remade, like it's fucking such a great, but also in terms visually, like they're able to do Mega City the way it's supposed to be implied in the comic books, or in the graphic novels, whatever you want to call them. But now, like, you have filmmakers that actually give a shit. You have actors that are not that don't want to take off the mask and say, "Hey guys, look, it's me."
I heard a Carl Urban interview where not an interview, it was a panel at Comic-Con, and they were talking about it, and he's like, he took a meeting with them, and as soon as he walked in the room, he's just like, just let you go. No, if you won't take off the helmet, we're not having this conversation. So, like, here's an actor who's like willing, Carl Urban is so good that his voice and his mouth is enough. He would have been a great Batman too. Like he's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I think actually that's an interesting point right there. Like, sometimes a good actor is a person that could do the most with as little as their face as possible.
Well, look at Kane Hodder. Like, look what he brought to Jason Voorhees with the breathing.
Just with his body posturing.
He's in the worst Jason movies, technically. Like, takes Manhattan,
but he's the most beloved, and he's the one that's remembered the most. Like the guy in the mask and stuff. Like, oh yeah, that's Kane Hodder. You can tell who it is and stuff. Mind you, my favorite Jason is the Part 4.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, I like Part 5 because everyone hates it, but it's also because Debbie Sue Voorhees is in it.
Is that the one that's not with Jason?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just like that weird one. That's like the Halloween 3 of the franchise. That
the one they were trying to do. They were trying to do different things.
Yeah, I have a
shot them in the foot.
What's another one you were thinking?
In terms of like remakes, I was like trying to write them down. I'm like, movies that shouldn't have been remade. I'm like made a list of stuff, but I'm like,
there's so many. So many shouldn't though, and Poltergeist is a big one.
That shouldn't have been.
Yeah, that shouldn't have been because it's like there's this whole slew and Point Break, and that like there's this part of me that will be an explosion of why the fuck did you do that? Because the charm of the decade they were made in is reliant on when it was made, and without it, it's just kind of forgettable garbage.
Well, I don't know. There's something. Okay, we'll talk about Poltergeist. Like, there's something creepy about that TV itself. Like just the way like those old-fashioned TVs are just this big box that like now we have these flat screens, which like I just don't think they're as scary. Like we're just gonna think of it in that way. Like there's like you turn on TV and like you just heard like static and all that stuff, and like sometimes if you change channels, you thought you saw something that wasn't there or something, whatever and shit. So like the implied ghost and the electricity type of idea, like. Or like the TV being a portal to another world type of thing, kind of like marries a little bit in like Twilight Zone territory and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's something very like overall there's something really creepily mystical about like the old TV sets. So when they remade it, it's like
just full of digital garbage. You know what I mean? Like they're like, and they had the clown on the poster because they're like, look at the big thing. I'm like, you know what? The clown was a scene in a great movie,
and it was also a great jump scare because you weren't expecting it. And like now that you show fucking clowns, like well, obviously there's a sinister clown in this.
Yeah.
So
like when I was showing Mel the original movie, it was all these little adventures. The tree, the clown, the television, the psychic coming in. It's all these. It's like a season of a show in an hour and a half, but nothing feels rushed either.
No, it takes its time. It's but at the same time, there's some great scenes in it. And what else did you say?
I just was I didn't even watch Point Break because I was like, why the fuck? Like you need it, like Patrick Swayze, you got Keanu Reeves, you got like two really iconic actors in a sense of their genre and their time, and then you make another movie with just some dudes. Except get this, Marco, the cop has blonde hair. And the bad guy has dark hair. Wow, you're changing it up, motherfuckers.
That's a good twist.
Yeah, just like it. That just seems like lazily remade. Yeah. There's a remake I really like, and I'm sure you don't, but it's just because I didn't have a lot of love for the original. I really, really liked the remake of Amityville Horror because it genuinely kind of scared me sometimes. And I'm aware they took a lot of swings when it came to the lore, and the other one was trying to be like as real as possible based on the events of whatever. But
it turns out to be like all horse shit, I think.
I think my problem with it is the same problem Stephen King had with The Shining, is that the guy was kind of a dick in the original before the house and after the house in the Amityville. And I'm just like, oh, look at this fucking bastard. It's like, oh yeah, he's a little worse now. Well, Ryan Reynolds was like a super nice like stepdad, and then he comes in and really shows the transition. And I don't know, fucking dead kids scare me. So I really like the Amityville remake. I know a lot of people don't, but I'm just saying I have a lot of love for it.
I don't have a dislike for it. I remember finding it was good when I saw it. I don't remember much of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I have no definitive attachment to the original. I think I watched it once a long time ago.
I watched it once. I think you were in the house. I think we're at our friend's house, and it was playing in the basement. And you know what? Here I am saying, I'm like, oh, I didn't like the original much. I'm like, man, I am a hypocrite. I probably watched it when people were talking and all that other stuff and didn't allow the actual cinematic experience to happen. So you know what? I'm going to give myself my homework. I'm going to watch the original in the dark by myself and really give it its time of day. Because I'm aware it's a classic. Like, I get it. But I just had no love for the transition that the dad character had in the original. Just James Brolin just seemed like a dick from the get-go, but it's based on a guy who's a dick though. The real dad from
he was a twat.
Yeah, he was a twat. Hey, you got another one?
No. I'm trying to remember like what I wrote down and stuff, and I forgot my paper. So
I'm sure.
I really did not do my homework at all and all that shit.
Okay, well let's talk about one that's I'm going to ask you right now if you think they should have did it, because we've been friends since I was 11. Well, no, I worshipped you when I was 11 because you're an older, cool kid. But in high school, you're like, hey, brother, hey, dude, you should watch this movie called The Evil Dead, and while wearing a Misfits t-shirt. And I just scanned you like the Terminator, and I'm like, noted. I'll try this Misfits band, which turned out to be great. And I watched Evil Dead and changed my life overnight based on Sam Raimi's use of angles, editing, whatever. I was fucking obsessed. And that was Evil Dead 1. But, years go by, and we reconnect, because we're watching, well, first we watched this Fantasia movie, The Devil's Rejects, awesome. But also, then a few years pass by, and you're like, hey, the new Halloween's out. Do you want to watch that? and you, me, and Big Dave, we all go to the cinema, and this Halloween is on steroids. Like the other one, it's very subversive, it's quiet,
pacing. Yeah, slow build up, subdued, and it's a ever impending sense of dread. Rob Zombie's like, rah! Yeah, it's basically
this one was Halloween on energy drinks and Coke. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think of this Rob Zombie remake of Halloween after all these years?
I like it when you don't attach to Michael Myers' mythos on it. I think, but at the same time, I think Halloween's kind of like something that's in kin with like Dracula or Frankenstein, where you could retell the same story. It's not like such a diverse mythos. Yeah. The John Carpenter version is basically evil that constantly follows you. Like it's unstoppable, and it's just like it's more of an entity than anything, and you just can't stop it. So it's that ever looming dread. Rob Zombie approached that from like first he was given carte blanche, and he approached it more in the sense of like, I'm going to throw that all off to the side, and I'm doing my thing. This is where evil comes from. It's more like, he had a shitty upbringing, and like he was bullied and this and that. So, and he had access to being a psycho, and then for some reason he's like, well, not for some reason, but he kills his entire family and ends in an insane asylum for 20 years or so. So he and he comes out and like basically they replay the original. So what's interesting about the zombie version is just that it's basically a Rob Zombie movie with like it's not even like a Halloween movie. So like you kind of like as long as like people are not mentioning the names Michael Myers, this and that.
Seems a little more Jason Voorhees-ish.
Well, I think he was more adaptable to be doing like something like a chainsaw movie. Even though like the Texas Chainsaw was remade,
is his bag. Every bio I've ever seen. Yeah.
He has that tendency of like really bringing out a great down and dirty sort of like westerny type of feel. Like kind of want him to
southern element.
Yeah, I kind of want him to like do more of that sort of thing. So like I remember when he was remaking the Halloweens, I wasn't like against it. I was just like, really? He wants to go there? Like I'd rather him, because when he makes a movie, like it's every 2 years and stuff. So like when that like that's what his next movie is going to be, it's like, okay, we'll have to wait another 2 years for the next movie and shit, and you find out it's a sequel. Which there's a part of me that kind of likes it. What I like about his movies is just he's unapologetically very visual, and he made it look like a very Hicksploitation sort of movie.
Yeah.
So I'm a mixed bag with that movie. I can't say I hate it. I can't say I fucking like love it to the sense of like I love the original Halloween. Mind you, I've seen the original Halloween so many times, like I don't really need
comparatively to your brother. Yeah, your brother's like all Halloween, like
Yeah, he's the big. He's the guy that like could capture every little nuance and detail in like the Michael Myers manner and like actually pull it off.
Awesome. I want Rob Zombie to create a whole movie called Southern Discomfort, because it really it just seems like I see the whiskey, I see like the Southern whiskey and all of this stuff. Like it's just sand on the floor, fucking infected cut, like just I don't know. Mm-hmm. There's something about his stuff, and I really appreciate. But Devil's Rejects, of course, is his best shit. Like let's all admit it.
Yeah.
But what's a movie you think should have been remade though?
Yeah, that's what I'm racking my brain right now. So I'm like having you talk until I just think of something.
A remake I found very necessary, as you're thinking, Piranha. I thought Piranha was fucking awesome.
I actually wrote down.
It leaned into the exploitation that the first one promised. And then when we watched it, it was much more arty. Like the original with Joe Dante.
Yeah, which at the same time, like, I think that was his first movie or his first official movie, or like, I think he was like doing scenes here and there. He was editing for trailers like before that and stuff. But yeah, so he was making like an obvious Jaws ripoff, but at the same time, taking like the subject matter serious. And I'm like, I wish it kind of like leaned a little more into the gore, because I think they were trying to make it a PG so the whole family could go see it, so like it's not gratuitous, even though kids are like getting cut up, and chewed up, and castrated.
In the first one, you know how like in Jaws, like one kid dies? Yeah. In Piranha, like 20, all of them. Kind of off screen though. It's more like, ow! And like, that's it.
Yeah. But yeah, what I like about is it the Alexander Aja? I think he directed that one. What I like about the remake is just like the last 20 minutes or so is just like pure mayhem. And it has everything like you said, like the fucking original, like overabundance amount of nudity.
I know, especially in the beginning. It's called Piranha 3DD. Like they just leaned into it as a throwback. But even though the original they weren't even paying tribute to the original movie with that sleaze. They're attributing it to the time it came out in. So that's kind of funny to me.
Yeah. I think any movie, if you're going to go see a movie about like piranhas, like just get ready to see as much raunchy shit as possible and stuff. So like it delivers what it promises. So
you know, it's a remake that sucked though, like really sucked. Like, and I remember you coming, and I didn't even see it in the theater. I think I saw it later online. You guys came. I met you at Crowbar afterwards. You had just seen the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, and you were so fucking pissed. Like just you had this look in your eye, like just you watched your.
I think at that point I went to see it as a gatekeeper. You know, like does this movie really deserve to be remade? Because I really think like the first one, like with all its flaws, but every great horror movie has like a shit ton of flaws, which you kind of have to embrace. You know, it's like that. It's like that sandwich you made that's just like with like the meat that's like slopping out of it and all that stuff. It's not perfect, but it's delicious.
But you brought up something really interesting there. Like the part that bothered you the most is that there's this famous scene where Freddy walks through a wall, and in the original it was just this.
He pushes out of the wall. Yeah. What is amazing about that? Actually, that in all sums up everything that was wrong with the remake. The original, it was like, we're gonna make this movie for $5. We're gonna like throw all our hearts into it, and we're gonna make it work, and we're gonna try to make the scariest thing that like you could ever, because the concept itself is just insane. You know, like especially when the movie came out, because no studios wanted to buy it because it's like a guy that could kill you in your dreams. How stupid! Like, why don't you just wake up? Stupid. Instead,
I can just see the fucking meetings. Why don't you just wake up? Well, don't go to sleep.
Yeah. So you have Bob Shea, who is like from New Line Cinema, and he's like, we make all these low budget movies. Like, why not?
I sell films out of my car.
Yeah. But like he knows Wes Craven's like, well, you've done two of the most fucked up movies. Wes Craven's kind of an amazing horror director. He's not my well, he is in a way kind of my favorite. He's tapped into the zeitgeist of like 3 generations of horror movies. You got like fucking 70s exploitations, Last House, Nightmare on Elm Street, like reamping the fucking slasher genre, and then like reamping it again, but getting that meta quality with Scream.
Scream. And then he missed the ball a little bit with Cursed, because he did a werewolf movie, but it was just a CGI like crap fest.
Feels like cool. I think he was either a director for hire or like just lost control. Because I don't know.
Curse seems really uneven to me. Like when I watch it, I'm like, it seems like a patchwork. Yeah.
Never saw it. But yes, going back to Nightmare on Elm Street, just like, okay, so the whole idea is like, what's her name? Nancy's sleeping in her bed, and I think the crucifix falls off her. I'm fucking really ruining this. I forgot what happens. Or how it happens. I think the crucifix falls off the wall, and then Freddy kind of like just leans through, and the way it leans out like through the wall, kind of like this ghostly figure, and then goes back into the wall, and then like, and the whole effect was like a $5 solve. Like all they did was they grabbed like latex, stretched it out, lit it in a certain way, so like when like Freddy came in, like you could see his shadow, and it was just like, this is fucking like at par with Nosferatu walking up the staircase and seeing his shadow type thing. That's like brilliantly done. So what they do in the remakes, like, we'll CGI it. It'll be 10 times fucking better. That's how I see like some directors or like filmmakers going back and like remaking these movies, is like slyly saying like, we can make this better using the most minimal of imagination. I'm probably like shit talking.
I'm hearing.
I just, that pissed me off when I saw that part. It took me out of the movie, and at that point, like after that, I like just had my arms crossed. I'm like, I'm not fucking caring about anything that happens in this movie.
When I saw it, I was just like, it's really utterly forgettable. But it's not to Jackie Earl Haley. He was great. I love that actor.
Oh, he was
played
good.
Rorschach. He was great. He's a great actor in a kind of bad movie. And if they just made another Freddy movie where it's just like, here's another entity of Freddy, or here's another person that is picking up this mantle.
Like I'm thinking of like a lot of these franchises. Some of them, like, you know, their legacy kind of characters, they could be remade, like King Kong or Frankenstein, Dracula. And I think Nightmare on Elm Street.
Glad you brought up King Kong. As soon as you finish your point, we're getting into the Kong.
Like you could easily like take this concept, because it's everybody will from the day it was first incarnated till like the day cinema stops being cinema and shit, everybody falls asleep and dreams and has nightmares and stuff. So like it's not like something that you can't unrelate to and shit. So like you could pick up a Freddy Krueger movie and like put a new spin on it. It's just the hard thing is Robert Englund is so iconic as fucking Freddy. You have to like do something different. And I appreciate. Please say his name because I can't pronounce it. Jackie Hurley.
Jackie Earl Haley. He played the badass kid in the Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
Kelly Leak.
Yeah. All right. So like he's fucking great. Like as a really creepy Freddy Krueger character, but like what we remember as Freddy as is like the wisecrack, or even like when Robert Englund did his first take in the first Freddy movie. It was like way darker, and there's something just about his mannerisms or how he played it. He was more gleefully evil, you know, and like that's what kind of made it scary. It was that part, like that's what made the character for me. So the newer one just felt like I'm a monster.
Yeah,
you know? It took the uniqueness out of the whole premise and like dropped it out of there. There was just nothing really to take away from the remake, so it was a pointless remake.
But there you go. Our last episode, we talk about the big three 80s horror, the remakes, and you know, they all brought something new to it, and they were innovative. The Fly, they didn't just put him they didn't put his head on another fucking fly and do it. They fucking made him slowly, you know, perish. And it's like, if you're gonna do something new, if you're gonna do a cover, play a Nine Inch Nails songs on an acoustic guitar and be like an 80s.
Do what Johnny Cash did,
yeah,
you know, bring it down.
Bring it down. Do something fucking different. If you're going to remake something, do something fucking different. And I've seen it work tons of times. And then you have King Kong, a reflection of a spectacle of the time of what you can pull off. King Kong was the first blockbuster ever. And then it gets remade in the 70s. And it's also a blockbuster, and it's like a feat that's still shown in Universal Studios. But instead of a stop animated gorilla, you essentially have a guy. You partially have a guy, but you essentially have Rick Baker in an ape costume, because they attempted to have it just as an animatronic thing.
A full size, full scale type of thing, and it just didn't work.
It didn't work.
They were trying to like. They were just trying to like put a new spin on it. I think the stop motion animation, like there's something about stop motion that's just uncannily believable, even though it's like fake. Yeah. Or you could see like, you know, his fur kind of moving, because like the animators are like, you know, is kind of like moving the fur, and like it's kind of looks like wind buster. But that's the sort of like believability that I don't know. I will buy into like a lot of the Kong stuff, and I think half because like I just think it looks great. It looks neat.
So if for the 30s, I mean, this is 30 years before they did the Abominable Snowman and the Rudolph one, and it's almost a similar performance where they were still catching up 30 years later. They're still catching up to the quality they brought in the 1930s when they were like innovating this new King Kong technology. All right, so the thing, I saw the 70s one just a few years ago, and the thing that took me out of it was the fact that in the ape costume, King Kong was standing upright, like a human, and that kind of bummed me out. And also, I like my King Kong, even if it's a stop animation. I like King Kong being
on all
an effect.
Fours, or?
I like King Kong being an effect, a spectacle. I don't like seeing a guy in an ape costume. I love practical things and I love sliminess and all that, but just like, come on, Rick, hunch, you know.
I think they were going for like a more humanoid, because like the newer King Kong from Skull Island kind of like is the same way too. He's like, you know, standing upright.
That's true. That's true. But at the same time, he's still kind of like, it's still a little bit more apish.
Yeah. Yeah.
But But he wasn't supposed to be in an ape costume. Like, they really wanted all the King Kong shots to be the life model, but it just didn't work out that way. And even Rick Baker told Dino, it's like, this is impossible. It's not going to work.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
But I think he was also a guy that was like more about his Grandignol way of doing things. Just like everything has to be big.
I guess we should have just brought up Peter Jackson's King Kong real quick. Like, that's a spectacle of its time. It's like, just riddled with CGI and all that stuff. And it's still got a lot of beautiful moments. It's still amazing what they could do, because that movie is like 10, 11, 12 years old now. And it's funny because I like Skull Island a lot, but I don't like any other sequels that Kong has been involved in since. Like, I don't
Since
like
the Skull Island movie?
I don't like Godzilla versus Kong at all. I like Skull Island, that's it.
I never really got a chance to see it. I was like, I was pleasantly surprised with Skull Island.
Yeah.
Like, I remember hearing great things, and I'm like, all right, I am for King Kong. I'm not gonna like be all like bourgeois and angry about it and all that stuff. So like, yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. I kind of like the look of it. I like the idea of Skull Island, like, people running for their lives. I like people running for their lives, but like not your average slasher movie. I like giant monsters.
Well, I like that in Skull Island they made all the human characters not disposable, annoying trash. Because, like, it reminded me of Predator meets Jurassic Park, where here's these humans in a situation that they are in over their heads, and there is giant fucking crazy stuff, except that this time, the T-Rex is on your side, and he's fighting, and that's King Kong, and he's fighting our T-Rexes. So that's why I thought Kong Skull Island worked so well. But when you see Godzilla, King of the Monsters, even though I love Michael Dougherty, it was not my bag, and Godzilla versus Kong, all the human characters are fucking annoying. So all of a sudden we get into Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6 or 5, where you're like, oh my god, just you exist to be like knife fodder, and that's it. There's no Nancy anymore. There's no compellingness. There's no arc. There's just like disposable.
Sounds like once again they were just ticking off boxes of like how characters should be or the type of archetypes. I bet you like they were also like spurting some sort of like message or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Like, which I don't know.
And they had the girl from Stranger Things in there, which is a huge star. So a side character that should have been in there 5 seconds all of a sudden gets their own plot that is not even connected to the other characters.
So it's just like, now we have to give them something to do.
Yeah, that was the Kong versus Godzilla thing, and I was just like, oh god fucking damn it.
It sounds like what they did with Last Jedi, where it's just like, you just connect a bunch of like C plots, like all together, and just you have nothing of value going on and shit. I do like the 76 Dino De Laurentiis version. And there's part of me, I think that's the first one I've watched. No, I'm a liar. The first one I've ever watched was like that sequel of it, King Kong Lives, which is fucking great. And they should just remake that. There you go. There's a movie that should be remade. It's like the King Kong Lives.
There you go.
Like, I don't know. There's just like something hilarious about like he falls in love with another giant gorilla. He has a heart transplant. he gets poached. He gets attacked by a bunch of rednecks, and then he gets his revenge. It's great. It's like such a great little fucking piece of shit.
Dude.
Mind Blender.